Hi guys, thank you all for coming back to my channel, and if this is your first time, welcome. I've been watching the ongoing situation with Josh Duggar, and I'm not going to lie. While the word trigger being thrown about like a baseball angers me to no end, I can honestly say I was triggered. I was sickened by the charges levied against him, but I'm also sickened by some of the comments that I've seen hurled against his pregnant wife Anna and the rest of his family. This video will be incredibly difficult for me to make because unfortunately I have too much experience as a survivor of both child sexual abuse and incest, as well as rape. I can personally attest to how damaging it is to the victims. I can also attest to the pain of the abuser being chosen over you, the victim. I've observed a creator attacking Duggar's wife mercilessly, blaming her defense of her husband to the fundamentalist Christian faith her family practices. While I do have strong reservations about their religion and its overly extreme teachings that, in my opinion, border on cult like, to me these attacks on the family is crossing a line that should never be crossed, especially in light of the fact that some of those being attacked are also victims. There was a time that I did enjoy watching the story of the Duggars. I remember watching them build their custom home and how they were able to budget to provide for their exceptionally large family. It was a refreshing change from a lot of the toxic content on television at that time. Like most of those watching, I was shaken when the news broke in 2015 that Josh Duggar had admitted to perpetrating sexual abuse on four of his sisters and a babysitter when he was 14 to 15 years old. Sadly, it was revealed that his youngest victim was only 5 years old at the time. I was horrified as his victims were named publicly by the media. Nothing that should ever happen to a victim of abuse, especially a minor. As their parents, Jim Bob and Michelle, spoke openly about what occurred in their family, it brought me back to how I felt as a child and the pain I felt as my mother protected my father after I came forward about the things that had happened to me as a child. So, what happened to me as a child? What happened for me to feel such sympathy for the Duggar girls and the babysitter victimized by Josh? When I was 10 years old, my younger sister passed away from SIDS. As a result, my mother plunged into a deep depression to the extent that my father had come home for lunch each day to make sure she ate. My mom stopped existing, instead, sitting in her room staring at a wall. During this time, I took over the role of mother to my then 4-year-old brother, but also as a wife. My father began to molest me at that time, including one occurrence of actual rape. I began to fear the dark because that was when he would sneak into my room, and this fear continues to this day. I am still unable to sleep without a television on, as if my dad heard the TV, he wouldn't come into my room. Jim Bob told Megyn Kelly during a Fox News interview that he said he was just curious about girls and he had gone in and just basically touched them over their clothes while they were sleeping. They didn't even know he had done it. Jim Bob defended not only Jim Bob defended not his daughters who were the victims. Instead, he made excuses for the behavior that had happened to them. Even more troubling, though, was his admission that Josh had confessed not once, not twice, but 3 times that he had improperly touched someone in their home. He said, "It was after that third time he came to us we were like we felt, you know what? We have done everything we can as parents to handle this in-house. We need to get help." So why did it take 3 times before they as parents decided it was time to get help? Social work today said that many children don't see themselves as victims of sibling incest, and it is far too often dismissed as child's play. While Jim Bob and Michelle Duggar could have done more to obtain treatment for Josh as a teenager, far too often this behavior, such as his, could be simply dismissed as a childhood exploration at the time. For Jim Bob to attribute it to curiosity shows they too believed it was mere child's play. While it could be easy to blame their Christianity for this response, in my opinion, that is very short sighted and ignores the far more troubling belief that sibling sexual assault and abuse is merely normal childhood experimentation. The sad reality is, according to Psychology Today, one study showed that 52% of those who reported mistreatment to a parent were still being abused over a year after the disclosure. That is, if they have reported at all. Many stay silent because of family loyalty. They don't want to betray their family. As a result, often disclosure is accidental, family loyalty, not religious extremism, family loyalty. Like many others, my abuse came to light accidentally. I told a childhood friend what was going on, and she told me if I didn't go to a school counselor about it, they would. Speaking to the counselor was probably one of the hardest things I've ever done. It meant admitting that I was a victim. It meant admitting my dad was hurting me. It is of note that it wasn't Josh's sisters who came forward about the abuse. It was Josh himself. Like many other child victims of sexual assault, they didn't disclose. There are so many who have blamed Jim Bob and Michelle for protecting Josh and not getting him the treatment he so desperately needed. It has been referred to as proof that they're members of a sex cult. My sexual abuse occurred prior to the emphasis on protection for children against sexual assault. My father spent one night in jail before he was bonded out on the condition he not return to the home. He was allowed to a plea bargain that would erase the offense from his record on the condition that he complete a year of therapy and not reside in the home during this time. The sex offense registry didn't exist yet, meaning no one would ever know of his crimes. How did my mother react when she found out? Was there sympathy for me? No. She instead told me that I must have seduced him and that she was angry that I'd split our family up. In short, she protected my abuser. That's why I was able to relate to the Duggar girls so much when Jim Bob and Michelle appeared on national television defending Josh. There are people who have questioned Ginger Duggar for her statement in her new book that one of my siblings had made some sinful choices. But it had been ages ago. It had been awful, but we had dealt with it as a family. Jessa defended him as well, telling Fox News, I do want to speak up in his defense against people who are calling him a child molester, pedophile, or a rapist. I'm like, that is so overboard, and a lie, really. I mean, people get mad at me for saying that, but I can say this because I was one of his victims. His wife Anna referred to his molestation of his younger sisters as past teenage mistakes, and that he was just someone that had gone down a wrong path. So how could they forgive him? It must have been the control of a cult that they're part of, right? But it isn't. Childhood sexual abuse and assault puts their victims in a very difficult position. How do you hate someone you're supposed to love? That wasn't something I was able to do. I actually had a therapist tell me once that until I was angry at my father for the things he had done, I would never be able to fully heal. I love my father, and I love him still to this day. I've had to stop myself from making excuses for his behavior. I've had to stop myself from blaming myself. Those that have never been in this situation have no right to throw stones at their victims for not cutting themselves off from their abuser or defending them for their actions. There is a difference between sexual assault by a stranger, an acquaintance, or a partner that is that has happened at the hands of a family member. As someone who's been the victim of both, it is something that I know well. While both are equally damaging to the victim psychologically, those that have never been in this situation have no idea how incredibly hard it is to separate the love they feel for their abuser from the abuse they've committed. As time passes and more information about the crimes Josh Duggar has committed continue to unfold, I can only hope that rather than vilifying his family and victims, they can be shown some grace. I also hope that rather than placing all blame on the conservative religious ideology his family holds, some light can be shown on the complex beliefs that many hold towards incest and the toll it takes on the entire family unit. The way to protect children from becoming victims in their own home is to challenge the beliefs that sweep this abuse under the rug. I have watched one particular content creator whom I refuse to name and her reactions to these allegations. I've observed the most sickening behavior I've seen in my almost 46 years of life. I've watched her monetize the personal story and struggles from one of Josh Duggar's former friends. I've watched her dox the family he is residing with. I've seen her dig through years of videos to discover a video of a young child eating a fruit, naming the girl by name and her relation to the Duggars, then gloating when a gossip publication referenced her, a publication that refused to name said child. I have watched her attack another content creator for realizing the person I am referring to is problematic. I have watched her blame anyone who has pointed out her atrocious behavior since the arrest and says that they are a supporter of the Duggars. I am far from a defender, and many who are appalled by the behavior aren't either. Do better. Please, just do better. Sadly, this isn't the only attack on abuse victims I have seen recently. I wasn't going to address this, but I feel as though as a survivor of both child sexual assault and rape, I need to stand up for others who are unable to. A brave young woman named Justine Paradise came forward without accusations about Jake Paul. There was a discussion in a content creator stream about these allegations. Someone came into the stream and said they didn't believe these allegations. There were some other things said, some cruel and hateful things, very painful things. Sadly, that is merely only one example of things I have seen when other women have come forward with allegations. For years during rape trials, the past sexual history of the victim could be brought up by the accused in court. She wore the wrong clothes. She was at the wrong place. She was asking for it. It's 2021 and many of these beliefs still persist. I have one question. Did the transgender man I went to high school with deserve to be raped and later killed because he was a woman living as a man? Did Matthew Shepard deserve to be beaten and killed because he was a gay college student living in Wyoming? No. We wouldn't even think to say these things. It's just wrong. Everybody acknowledges that's a hate crime. So my question is, does a woman deserve to be raped because she happens to be alone with a man? No. That, to me, is a hate crime as well. To the person who came into the stream and made comments about sexual assault victims, I implore you to please take the time to actually listen to how sexual assault and child sexual assault affects those who have lived through it. I also ask the same of any others that are watching this video today. Knowledge is power. Thank you to those who have hung in to listen to this long and difficult video about a very sensitive subject. Please remember to hug a child today, and please remember that everybody, male and female, do not deserve sexual abuse and assault. I love you all.